Hello everybody. Today we're completing our first experiment in our unit Sun and Earth, Investigation 1.1, Shadow Shifting. I'm going to be going outside in a few minutes, but I want you to do something first, and it was in our Google Slides, so you may have already done this, but just as a reminder, before you go outside, if you complete this experiment on your own, if you're able, you're going to complete your notebook. You have the date, Investigation 1.1, and our focus question. How and why does your shadow change during the day? And you'll see what I'll do in a moment.
Hi everybody, welcome to our shadow shifting experiment. For this, 1, you have to be outside. 2, you need some chalk. You can also use other twigs and branches to measure if you don't happen to have any chalk. Just some way to measure your shadow, and I can talk about more of that when we're in person. I found this chalk. I actually think that thick street chalk would be better. I just couldn't find any yesterday in my travels. So the first thing you need is a sunny spot, because with a shadow, I think you need some sun. So my driveway here is not going to work, so we're going to walk down to the street where I can find some sunshine. See you in a minute. All right, now we're down in the middle of my street. So the first rule, if you choose to do this experiment, is to find a safe spot. I'm in the middle of my street. I don't get a lot of cars here, so it's pretty safe, but I have someone making sure I'm safe and alerting me to whether there's any cars or other traffic. So please make sure you check with your parents and find a safe spot to do this experiment if you're able to do it. The driveway would be the best spot, but in my case I can't use my driveway because it's all shady. I have a lot of trees, so it's actually pretty hard to find a safe spot. The other thing you want to do is make sure your road or driveway is clear of any debris. I have lots of pine cones and things, so I kind of, it'll be a little tough to trace my shadow, but we'll do our best. Now, the second thing is you want to make sure you actually see your shadow. So if my cameraman comes closer and shows my shadow, you can see I have a shadow, and I can be a muscle man. I can raise a leg, make myself have ears. So what you're going to do is look at your shadow, experiment with it, observe it for a few seconds. What is it doing? How tall is it? I feel like mine is pretty long. It looks taller than I actually am, so I'm thinking about that. And I see that the sun is over here on my right and my shadow is on my left. So I'm thinking about that. 1 and 1. The next thing you have to do is hopefully you have a partner. This can be mom and dad, grandma, could be a brother or sister. Even young siblings could do this. And you need someone to trace your shadow with chalk. So because you can't do it yourself, obviously I could never reach that high and trace my own shadow. So I'm going to take a moment. My partner's going to stop videotaping me, and he's going to trace my shadow. So we'll be back in a moment. Okay, so my partner has traced my shadow. He used almost one whole piece of chalk. So street chalk would be way better. And you can see, right now I'm inside my shadow. Cameraman, can you come up a little closer? And if you see, my shadow has been traced with the chalk. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're just looking for an outline of the shadow, basically how long it is, maybe how wide it is. If I move my arms, I'm going to go outside of my chalk outline, but that's okay. I'm going to step out of my shadow in a moment so you can see what the chalk outline looks when I'm not in it. There it is. I'm going to get the whole length. And he even drew a line. See this? Can you focus on this line? Maybe get it up close. And this is where my foot was originally, so when I come back later today, I'll have a marker point for where I actually placed my foot. Okay, now back to me. So what we're going to do, it's about 9:15 in the morning. This is what my shadow looks now with the sun on my right and my shadow on my left. We're going to come back later on today after lunch. I'll let you know what time it is then, and we're going to see if my shadow has shifted. Has it changed in any way? And that's all for now. See you later.
Now, when I was outside and I observed my shadow and I observed where the sun was in relation to my shadow, I drew a sketch. We just forgot to record that part. So, I'm going to show it to you now. So when you do this, it would be a great idea if you took your science notebook outside with you and made your observations as you're standing there, because you'll remember it better. You're going to see it right there. So here's mine. You can see I did some labeling. It does not have to be a fancy drawing. I have the sun up here because it was behind me or on my right. I drew myself. I just noted that there were trees on this side of me and grass on this side of me. This is kind of the outline of my street, and I was at an intersection, and here's my shadow. And I've labeled everything so that I'll remember where it was. Later on, we'll be going out a second time, and we'll see how our shadow changed. Is it as long? Is it in the same place? We don't know right now. See you later.
Hi everybody, it's after lunch. It's actually about 1:45. I was hoping to get out here earlier. So we're going to do the second part of this experiment. I'm standing in the same spot that I was before, right on my chalk line. You can see the outline of my original shadow. And guess what? It's pretty shadowy here right now because it's trees. But believe it or not, we can still faintly see my shadow. You may have difficulty, but if you see me moving around, you can actually see it. So we're going to be able to trace it. I'm noticing earlier the sun was right on my right-hand side. Not there anymore. It's actually moved around. If I go like this, and it's actually right behind me now. So it's almost gone a quarter of the sky. So that's pretty cool.
Go.
So I'm going to stop filming now. My partner's going to trace my shadow, and we'll show it to you in a minute. Okay, and we're back. We've traced my shadow, and you can see, my cameraman will show, it's in a completely different position than it was earlier at 9:15 this morning. It's almost right out in front of me. In fact, the two shadows together almost make a strange L shape. I also noticed that my shadow appears to be much shorter than my original shadow at 9:15 as compared to now. Can you show my shadow? So I know it might be hard. My shadow might not be as visible to you, but I definitely see it. I can even raise my hands and I see that happening. I'm going to step out of my shadow now. Yeah, it definitely makes an L shape. If you can get a close-up of the whole entire thing. I think some cars have driven over my original shadow. It's a little fainter, my outline. And there you go. So our question is, our shadow shifted. That's a definite thing. We have data and we've proved that. We're now wondering, why did my shadow move? Why did it shift just like this? Why did it get shorter? And I'm wondering also what the sun has to do with it. The sun was here and it's moved over here. So there seems to be two things that changed, and I'm wondering if they make a connection. I'm now going to add my illustration in my notebook of my second shadow. I'm glad I labeled grass because now I know which way to draw it. I'm going to label it like this. I'm going to label this one now that I did it at 9:15 a.m. And I did this one at 1:45 p.m. So you notice I made this one much shorter than the original one. I've noted the time, the sun, oh, and the sun, I might label the sun up here 9:15. Sometimes I think of things as I go. So here, this is what the sun was at 9:15, and now it's directly behind my head at 1:45. Until next.